My name is Dino Paredes, and I will be one of the moderators for the evening. My goal tonight is to help us understand the content of the book and the process in which it came about, and see it through the eyes of our co-moderator, who will be shortly. My connection to Maynard is that I've known him for about 25 years in various capacities. We've collaborated on some work together, and most recently, I now manage Close Up for the Circle. So it's an honor to be here tonight. It's also an honor to introduce my co-moderator for the evening. This is a real special treat we have tonight. There's a connection to Dallas, obviously. Please welcome all-around musician, artist, good human being from the Flaming Lips. We did a track back in 2011, anniversary of Elton John's Rocket Band. Please welcome Steven Drozd. So what we're going to do is we're going to do some readings tonight, some discussions. And I should mention that tonight's extra special because tonight is, for all intents and purposes, the last one of these that we're going to do. We had no more of these planned. This is the last on this tour, and then things get busy. And as you know, Maynard has a lot on his plate, so this is the last we're going to do. So, with that, I'd like to introduce to you a man of many skills and talents. I like to say that the best way to describe him is the salutation on his emails. There's a list of things: curmudgeon, winemaker, singer for a couple of bands. I forget what bands he's in. But the best is world-class multitasker. Please welcome my dear friend, Maynard James Keenan. When we had this crazy idea, Maynard told me about this book that he was putting together, and then I had a crazy idea of doing this, at which he said no immediately. Oh, yeah. And then somehow I convinced him, and as we started picking people to do this around the country with us, it's a different person every night, by the way, in each city. So tonight will be unique because of Steven being here. He wrote this letter that was sent to all the moderators as a way to sort of introduce them to what the evening would hopefully be, so that we could sort of make this more than just something stupid. The letter was so good and made so much sense that we talked about it and decided that he should read it every night for you guys so that you have an idea of where this whole thing goes. So to start the evening off, he's going to read the letter that was written and sent to all the moderators.
Oh, is he?
Well,
you may have noticed that 2016 has been an absolute asshole. No one has been left untouched, and I have my theories. Bear with me as this borders on my hippie crystal clutching side. The broad strokes that I believe us all to be in transition. Our physical and mental bodies are experiencing changes in our emotional and spiritual bodies. These changes are, of course, connected to global and universal changes of the same or similar nature. And many of us, on some unconscious level, are choosing to exit. You can insert your endless list of celebrity and family member departures the last 12 months, so fuck you, 2016. We're finding it more and more difficult to keep our shit together. Meltdowns, rash decisions, all-out confused and disconnected behaviors are manifesting in ugly ways. And there are other metaphors for these changes happening that are being marginalized. Global warming, threats of World War III, health issues that may or may not be connected to GMOs and several generations of shitty processed foods in general. Creed. Who's about? There are countless wonderful manifestations as well, but the media and social media can't cash in on those, so the rub wins out most of the time. Conscious, connected breathing has never been more important than it is right now, or just consciousness in a sense of connection in general. I felt these changes coming a long time ago. It's what drove the wanderlust that led me to Jerome via Los Angeles. Some of this is hinted at or touched upon in this biography. So in a way, this biography will serve as a catalyst to quietly and indirectly let people know that everything's going to be all right. The readings and the Q&As are opportunities to highlight this need for connection and consciousness. I would encourage you to read the book and highlight some sections that you'd like to read from and or discuss. But don't be offended if I steer any kiss and tell or dirty laundry conversations back towards the above-mentioned agenda. We need it. I'm no Tony Robbins or Deepak, but I have seen a few things in my day. This is our opportunity to share what we consider to be the big picture. Thank you.
Take it away, Steve.
Well, opening thoughts on that statement. It's a pretty heavy thing to put all at once, you know. I think a lot of it's true, though. I think something I've struggled with in the last year or 2 years with this election. It seems like there's no real value in anything you see on the internet, and anyone can read anything at any time.
Yeah.
And just you can make these rash decisions. You can decide whatever you want, say the news, and none of it has any consequence. But I think maybe we're seeing that now that it has some consequence. So yeah, that's something I'm kind of freaking out about right now. Personally.
Yeah, I think that is that's something that it's an epidemic. I feel truth in what you're seeing, and I think part of something I'm benefiting from coming out was that we didn't have a television in our house. Before I moved up to live with my dad in Michigan, lightning had struck the house. I guess they didn't have it grounded properly. I didn't have a television in high school, so we did things. You know, we talked with each other. We did things. We cut wood. We went cross country skiing. We built things. We planted things. And I noticed that other kids in my classroom, my classmates, 2 other kids that I know of that didn't have a television in high school. One of them flew Air Force One, and the other was the head executive at a major oil corporation. I think she since resigned because she's felt guilty. I don't know that for a fact. So I just think having that time to be connecting with somebody and working is an important thing that I experienced as a kid. And I was able then, when TV did come into my life, I was able to go, well, that commercial seems like bullshit. That seems like an agenda. You were able to see it right away without having to have it explained to you.
Well, I wasn't.
Well, but you don't. I think that's something that you have. If you get distance from it, looking at the things you see on Facebook, you have to question every single one of them, even the ones that you agree with, because the ones you agree with are the ones that are going to take you down that rabbit hole in a dark way. So, again, opening statement: remain conscious and connected, and try to kind of question all those things so that you at least can come to some semblance of the truth, and then kind of rely on your gut for the rest of it, because your gut will tell you.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm just afraid of the internet right now.
Can I interrupt you?
Yeah, sorry.
Being that you're also a public figure and being in a band, the internet's a big part of how your band exists.
Oh, yeah.
We know. Do you find yourself now approaching what you do differently with your band and your art?
I can't speak for all of us, but I don't think we've changed the way we do music necessarily. We might change how often we put music out or what we expect people to have access to, but I don't think it's changed our music per se. So, not so much that, but I guess I think of my kids. My son's 11, my daughter's 8, and they're just inundated with, I mean, everyone knows this. They're just inundated with so much. You know, even my own sordid past, they can just, in 2 clicks, they can Google my own history. So, this guy, it's really no, it's, I was in their face with my kids. You know, they're reading, Hillary Clinton's this, Donald Trump's that, and Bernie supporters are just all this crazy stuff. Maybe I'm getting off track.
Oh no,
it's just something I'm kind of struggling with.
I think it's important for you to understand that that is a whole new medium, and I think it's funny how if you are just I live in Arizona, and we have seasons. Of course, we're planting things and growing things, and then there's snow. I just got a text from my wife. It's snowing in Flagstaff. I'm going to come home to some nice, beautiful snow tomorrow.
I think it's what kind of leads to Arizona in the sense that maybe part of why you pulled away is you sensed some of that overload of stuff that we now see on the internet getting to you. I mean, we're going to have a reading in approximately 6 minutes that we'll talk about that.
No, but I think the point is that all the awful shit and all the lies you're reading on the internet. If you just go outside and take a walk in the woods or take a jog or go work on your bike or whatever whatever you're going to do, if you end up kind of getting into those activities, you come back and all this shit just seems like it's trying to make you afraid. And you go outside and you start working on your garden, and you're all of a sudden you're just no longer afraid. It's kind of a weird phenomenon. I have an idea. Turn it the fuck off. Don't look at it.
Right before election day, where it was like a very sickening addiction, where every 20 minutes I had to check my phone to see what the latest news blast was. Huffington Post and Washington Post and New York Times. I had 5 of them. It's not right. Your kids are wanting to play out in the backyard and you're like, oh! But what happens is, when for me, it doesn't matter who you voted for, but for me, when the election results came in, I let it go for 2 days, and it's the best I've felt in a long, long time. So go outside, pick up a football. Wow, what is it? Throw the football. Take a piece of wood. Drive a nail in it. And it felt great. So I actually did that. So
I think it's kind of why you work so much sometimes. I mean, we talked about it with other things like this, the insane work ethic you have that I don't think people realize. Is that part of that? Is it a little bit of escapism for you?
I think equal parts escapism and solutions. I don't really present a lot of arguments online. I don't present a lot of red flags and look at this and can you believe he said this or can you believe she said that or whatever's going on, because unless I can actually present what I feel is a well thought out, at least seed for a solution, I feel like I have to keep my mouth shut until I can actually how can I fix it? Yeah, running around the street and with a sign, picketing a thing is, I guess, raising awareness, but without the solution, it's just, I just need to get to, I'm just trying to get where I'm going and you're blocking traffic. Come up with a solution, and I don't know that yelling about it is the way. It is. It's the start of the conversation. Like, for example, South Park. Fantastic show. I think their biggest strength is that they don't, no one is left untouched. You look, every single person, every single agenda is on a target. What they don't actually present, of course, because it's safe, they don't present any solutions. They just call. They're the jester in the court of the king, calling out everybody's bullshit, which I think is the first step for you recognizing your own bullshit.
Yeah, I don't think it's just calling it out. So
killing Kenny is not going to solve it.
How much of what you guys are doing sometimes when you're creating your art is sort of a subversive path to calling out bullshit?
All of it.
I mean, I'm just trying to please myself, man, so. The message comes from other people I work with who have a way of hearing what I've made and navigating their way to creating some great message through that. So, but I'm just usually trying to get my little piano and come up with pretty music. So. Plus, when the grid goes down, I'll have a real piano come out my house.
Right. But there's this thing called a solar flare, and your Facebook is fucking toast. You know? You're gonna play piano and mandolin and sing till the fucking cows come home.
Yeah! I've seen you go down that road, though, where you're using that avenue, that outlet to call bullshit on people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of guys in your position maybe don't do it as well.
I think they go at it straight. They go at it, no offense to, Bruce Springsteen and Creed, Eddie Vedder.
Let's talk about Creed.
We're only allowed to say Creed one time a night. But I think, those guys, they tend to go at it head on. They'll do the protests head on. And there's definitely ways to go about it that actually are more effective than just the cheerleaders absolutely needed, and it's effective to a point. But actually figuring out how to take all the banks down is actually a much more thorough part of the plan.
Whether you're the boss or men without hats, or
right, or men with hats.
In Finland, it's kind of it's for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's time for you to go up there.
Okay.
This will be the second of 4 readings. Doesn't really need much of an explanation. So.
I dreamt I was flying over a vast desert. I'm flying through the air, and I come over a crest into a valley and hover over a small town on the side of a hill. I turn to the west, and I see in the distance a huge wave cresting and completely annihilating a large city on the horizon. About a month later, I got a package from Bill Hicks. He was in the middle of editing his 3rd album, and he sent me a cassette of the music. He had some questions for me about whether the music fit the comedy or not. It was called Arizona Bay. I thought about my dream, and I had an idea that it had to be Arizona that I saw. I spent time in Phoenix. It didn't really look like that at all, but I knew it was definitely Los Angeles getting its ass kicked. That's the shit.
Dallas and Arizona, you got up your sleeve?
No, my first thought is just the Bill Hicks thing with that. Because I have read that. I've read the whole book, but some parts, depending on if you're on a flight or if you're just sitting in your living room, you're more, you're reading more attentively or something. But that part really kind of hit me in a weird way. Like that must have had created some subconscious way of making choices for where to go or do things.
Yeah, I think
because that's a joke, right? Arizona Bay. That would be like, what would that be?
Yeah, that was kind of his joke.
But not at all, right?
Right.
His package going out, Robert. We should make sure we got it locked in.
Yeah, get back to just in case. We're good. We're fine. Yeah. As long as I face this way, don't move. I think that has a lot to do with synchronicities, I think. There's a great scene in The Meaning of Life by Monty Python, where they're talking at a board meeting, and they're talking about, one of the items on the agenda is the meaning of life, and they have one of the guys has come up with 2 scenarios, and he says, what are your scenarios? He says, well, first, the idea is that you're actually not born with a soul. You actually develop a soul through consciousness and connection and focus and work. And you develop a soul through introspection, through choices, through learning from mistakes. You gain your soul. And then he says, what's the other thing? People aren't wearing enough hats. So I think, of course I resonate with that consciousness thing because I feel like that's what's kind of happened throughout my life. There's been moments in high school, coming out of high school, going into the military, where I had to make decisions and I had to make conscious choices and I had to be in my body with nobody around with these decisions. And you had to be in that moment. You had to follow your path, and then something would come up later that I would consider a synchronicity. Something happened. It wasn't necessarily the universe laying breadcrumbs for you to follow to do a thing. It was more just you starting to recognize the layers and multiple events happening simultaneously everywhere throughout time, throughout dimensions, and it's just the universe nodding at you, just an acknowledgement. Not necessarily you're not supposed to drop everything and go, move to the Grand Canyon, but fuck it, do it anyway. And that was kind of what happened with me with Bill. I was already thinking that I needed to get out of Los Angeles. I'd only been there for 4 years at that point.
Right, that's not your home.
No, not at all. I came from a very small town in Michigan. And so I feel like I recharge better as a writer, as an artist. I was not used to even living in Boston. I could never get used to the activity, the noise when it came to trying to, buckle down and actually get some work done. There's a frequency there that I couldn't turn off.
And the cold winters.
Yeah, the cold winters in Boston make you want to murder people. It seems like I didn't actually murder anybody.
No, it seemed like from a young age, I think a lot of us are just faced with, you're 18, you go to school. Which school do you go to? Don't want to do this, don't want to do there. It seemed like from a pretty early age, you kind of proactively were always trying to plot, what can I do to think 4, 5, 10 years ahead? That's what it seems like to me reading the book. Do you feel that's true, or do you feel like it was some of what it was actually just?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, my father wasn't around in elementary school, but he was there full presence in high school, but he was always there from a distance, and his discipline rubbed off on me in a big way, just because he could show me how there's no way to skip these steps. You have to do the work. You have to look ahead. Live in the moment. Live as if tomorrow is your last day, but also with kind of balance with ahead and being grounded.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what started that notion of almost overachieving in everything you did, really always pursuing to great lengths? Come from that?
I don't know, because it was my life, and it was just the way that I did it. So I don't know about the overachieving. I just know about.
Do you ever recognize that, by the way?
Finishing it. No.
Reading the book, I just was fascinated with the whole joining the Army to get a scholarship in the GI Bill, just so you could go back to school to study art through that. And then really, really thriving in the West Point world, like the military world, all the terms for it. That right there alone is impressive. But then to say, I'm not going to do that, I'm going to go back to the path. I think that just shows you have a lot of unique fortitude, I guess would be the word. So.
Yeah, I think the heart. Yeah, this is a much longer conversation than we can do in 90 minutes. But I'm going to try to take a stab at it.
Let's just stop now.
Just stop. I think just as a nation now, I think you have the Iron Age, you have the Renaissance, you have all these ages. We're the fucking age, not me. I'm 52. We're living in the age of entitlement, where people want to skip steps, and Amazon delivers yesterday. It's not used to actually, even when you're looking at just the simplest shit online or on your phone or whatever, like you're asking a question that was in the fucking statement that you're asking a question about. There's, gone are the days of actual problem solving. And here's a paragraph, and you have to figure out this puzzle and solve this and have an answer in long form, not multiple choice. Actually having to figure out this word puzzle, or this word problem. We don't have that in our education system anymore. And I think we've lost touch with a lot of things. Everything is so immediate that the idea, even like for something like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or Judo, people want their black belt yesterday. There's no fucking way you can do it. There's like, your body just doesn't even learn these things in a compacted, the minimum amount of time that it takes your body to understand these chest movements is this amount of time. A world-class athlete that's had a background in martial arts to begin with, this is the minimum amount of time. People trying to get there to excel and get that reward, it has more to do with attention than it does recognition. They just want the attention, they want to skip all the steps. So, I think, in a way, we've kind of lost touch with that kind of putting the time in and working toward it. And somehow, my father instilled in me that sense of understanding that work ethic. The other thing that he instilled in me was to take chances. Shit's scary. You're standing there and you have to make a decision about the rest of your life, and you have 5 minutes to do it. Am I going to go on to West Point and become an officer and possibly go on to be a colonel or a general? Or am I going to go to art school and hang out with people I probably am not going to like and, kind of follow my passion? No, I think I've had to make a million of those choices, a million of them, but you don't know what comes next, and it's fucking terrifying, and you need to just fucking get used to it. You jump. The worst thing that happens if you jump is that you die. Well, then you're fucking dead. So.
This is totally off the rails of politics, but the first election you could vote, who did you vote for?
Shit, what was that?
I was 62.
Who came after Reagan?
Well, Poppy Bush was.
I voted for the other guy.
You voted for your caucus.
I was in the military during. Oh no, I voted for the guy who went up against Reagan because I'm watching our commander-in-chief come down to West Point, and they're pardoning people, and I'm watching all these people around me that were, the cadet code is you will not lie, cheat, steal, and tolerate those who do, and the guy who's the head of all that is a fucking liar. That's just mine.
But you're thriving in the environment, you're serving, you're doing everything you're supposed to do, and you voted for Mondale.
Yeah.
It's Mondale, right? It says a lot, I think, right?
Even though he has funny eyebrows, which was pointed out to me. Don't vote for him, he has funny eyebrows.
I think that to finish up that thought about the drive and the dedication and not skipping the steps, to me, in reading the book and having known you, and I've said this a few times, so a year to you is boring, but I think that people, when they read this book, are going to be, and you and I talked about it on the phone even, shocked at the amount of work you do, and just the amount of work you put into everything you do, and how that seems to be a constant recurring theme, and that need to prove people wrong.
Yeah, I guess so. I saw a thing it was online, I don't know where I saw it or I read it, a whole thing that Tony Robbins had a little speech that I thought was interesting. Shut up.
He's here, Tony Robbins.
He's right here. Well, he's mentioning that, people tend to not just go and try things because they're in the boat. And he said the only way to really, sink or swim literally is to get out of the fucking boat. People that tend to get out of the boat in the water, and there's the shoreline or there's death, they tend to want to survive and then make it to shore. And I thought, when I read that, I was like, there's a fucking boat? I've never had the fucking boat. I've been struggling to survive the whole time. You just dive off. You're either going to die or you're going to get there. Go.
Robbins.
He knows a good dentist.
We've been asking the moderators every night that we do this to pick a reading that moved them or somehow inspired them in the book to have him read. So we call it a wild card reading every night. So this next piece, do you want to talk about it all before you read it?
I do, I guess, because it was a couple of things that hit me, even though it's a short piece here, but I don't actually have it.
Want me to grab it?
Well, I have it. Yeah, it's about it's about your mother when she was getting older, and had basically fallen in love or wanted to care for an old person.
Yeah.
The church that she was a member of deemed her, I guess, not worthy of their love anymore because she was living in sin, because she was...
Oh yeah, she was like, they were an older couple. If they were to actually get married,
Yeah.
he would lose his benefits.
Yeah.
So they basically, they will survive. They just live together. They're two invalids in a house that can't have sex. They're just lonely. And the church took them off the roster because they were living in sin.
Yeah. The book
Makes
has
you
some
wanna
of the
burn
great
shit
parts,
down.
but that part of the book, I was in tears. Just, it really devastated me. And then, you finish the passage with, I left LA to get away from this disconnected horse shit. So in my mind, I put together this mega horrible thing happening with your mom and her belief in the church and the church disowning her, basically. And then you going through too much stuff in LA and trying to make a break from LA. I was just trying to get a sense of more of what you thought about that. That's why I picked that passage out. So, you want to...
Should I read it?
You want to read it first?
I just read it. Put that there. Why not? I think it's just the antennas for him. I thought about this incapacitated older man she met. They moved in together to help each other because they were lonesome. Then the church took her off the roster from living in sin. This was a couple who couldn't even make love. I thought about the groupies who wanted to get close to me but never really bothered to find out who I was. I thought about people who could move and walk and see, who had every advantage, but who just bury their talents. I thought about people who aren't conscious of the most fucking important things around them. I had left LA to get away from this disconnected horseshit. I think that's one of the driving forces, in addition to just my dad's work ethic. I think having a relative that used to be able to write and talk, very social, very active, to have that person now be bound to a walker or a wheelchair, can't write, can't speak, can't tell time. Can barely call, 911 in case of an emergency. Who wanted to, you could see in that person's eyes that there was the desire to be there. The consciousness was still there. It was just disconnected from the body and some of the motor functions of the mind. And I think having the ability to do those things, as I mentioned, is it's a crime for you not to do. To do something, to make the connections, to connect the dots, to put the work in, but have that long-term, that 7-year plan in a way to actually have a goal. And I think the only way you can really do that is to really see it. You have to go out and see somebody who's done it. I think that might be the attraction for musicians. You will see that person with their playing guitar singing, and go, I want to do that. No, you don't. You would be doing it. You would understand the steps that it takes to get to that. That didn't just happen over a fucking night. I got a great metaphor. I'm just taking the story. If I get off topic a little bit, just have him throw something at me. There was a place in LA, old furniture store called Cohen, Melrose. It was an Indonesian kind of Indian furniture store. And every month or every 2 months, they would have world music in. Sitar player, tabla player. And this one particular night, they had flamenco. They would clear all the furniture back and put chairs out in a circle and have the performance in the middle of this gorgeous store. And it was this young woman doing flamenco with her fiance. And it was incredible. I mean, the rhythms, the clapping and the stomping and everything that they were doing with their little group of people was just overwhelming and impressive. And then the mother and father got up. And they were just making the kids look like they never even done it before. It was amazing to watch mom and dad actually show the son-in-law and the daughter, you know. They're not showing them up. They're just doing what they do, which is much better than what the daughter was. And they're so, you know, there it is. You have a generational family tradition being handed down, and a young woman and a young man who can physically see what it's going to take to get to their level, because they've watched them develop over the years as children. And then grandma and grandpa got up. Fucking shredded.
And not just shredded, but that emotional.
Yeah, everything, the emotional depth, the experience, just everything about it, and no steps skipped. You can tell that they put the work in, and there's no way that daughter or mother were ever going to be as good as grandma if they don't put that time in every day to get to that art of how, and you know, it's a family, it's a connected thing, which is hard, and you're rare to witness that nowadays. Everybody goes to a factory or some office that they fucking hate. But the biggest overwhelming element to that for me was watching the grandmother and the grandfather. They're older, their bodies are falling apart, they're you know, coming up on their twilight years, and yet their attraction for each other is 20-fold, because they're fucking masters at their art, and their love, their connection was undeniable. And I want that. Too long isn't enough. You gotta get off your fucking ass and do it.
Amen!
We've been talking about now for 3 weeks doing this. That's the crux of this. A lot of times, the big picture in that letter is it's not about the dirty laundry and kiss and tell stories. It's about this desire you have to get this message across. So now that we've been doing this for 3 weeks, I was thinking about it earlier. Do you think we're getting the message out? Do you think people are paying attention to this? And what are we missing in these nights that we can give these people so that when they leave tonight, they know exactly what you want them to know from this?
Well, the biggest point of all of this book is not about me, it's about you. So if you can apply who you are to that book, that nothing to do with it. It has to do with a series of choices and the consequences of those choices. And, you make your own choices. This is just a map of what choices I made. Now you apply those things to your own life, and hopefully this will be the start. So, is this sinking in? You know, most likely we're planting a few seeds. I don't know. We won't know because, again, this is the long game. We're playing the long game.
If it's worth anything, since I got the book and read it, started studying the different facts of your life and stuff, I've actually thought about my kids in a different way. I'm thinking now, like, what the hell are you going to do? I mean, you're going to go to college. I hope you're going to do this, you're going to do that. But really, what are you going to do? I mean, you have to find what you want to do, and you have to find a way to pursue that instead of just go through the road, learning of everything, and then you get shot up to this college and do this, do that. What the hell?
Fuck the map, follow the road.
So
Well, I think, especially the kids, as you know, you've met in our circle of people. There's a lot of, artists that just to get up on stage and do what we do, something happened. Let's be honest. Like there's some kind of thing, mommy issues, daddy issues, whatever it is. Something compelled you to be up here to dance around like an idiot, so that you can get a little bit of attention or affection to validate your broken life. hopefully.
Makes you feel good, doesn't it?
The expression and that pain that that person's going through, if they're an effective artist, they're sharing a way out for some people. I think that's important. But I think putting that time in to understand that there's negative reinforcement, there's positive reinforcement. I know a lot of kids that are bullies because their older brothers praised them when they were bullies to the other kids in the neighborhood. I was like, yeah, man up and be a bully. I see it a lot in the jiu-jitsu academy. There's always that one guy that's got to prove something. And that's probably came from his dad or his older brothers making him be a fucking dick. And that negative reinforcement, then that's the attention. It's not recognition, it's attention, and that feeds who you're going to become. So as a parent, I think it's really important, not just as a parent, not just your kids, your community's kids, because it takes a village, right? You have to give them that positive reinforcement. If you think that person might be really good at singing, woodworking, dancing, boating, I don't know,
Winemaking.
Buildings. You have to give them that positive reinforcement because that's our future.
I think it's a great point that seeing these things and watching what people say afterwards, the phone calls I've gotten, the phone calls that we had. I don't really know Steven, but we had amazing phone calls talking about how we were both inspired by this. So whether you know it or not, I'm telling you this last night we're doing this, I think that you're planting seeds and you really need them. These jokers, I don't know about. We're going to start being pen pals now.
We could trash talk for like an hour or something. But we have a lot of stories to tell. Creed. We played in Dallas together back in 1994. The Bomb Factory.
So before we get into we have a Q&A, we have a bunch of proof questions that we're going to call people down on by name. But we have the other reading. But what I'd like to get into is a little bit with talking about some of that grind. I don't think people really realize how difficult it can be. You just wanted to play songs, and here now you are like in a van or in a hotel room in some strange city, having to play the songs. That's how you couldn't just stay in one spot to play them. You have to move around to make that living, to make that work. And I don't think you don't really truly grasp what goes into that until you're doing it, and then until you're doing it 6 weeks, 9 weeks, 12 weeks straight, until it really sinks in. Like, oh my God, what is this choice I've made? And you have those moments in that travel where you have this little oasis that occurs that recharges your battery and lifts you up and just makes you reminds you why you're doing it. Because if you're in a band, you're doing the same songs every night. Here you are, like trying to get some shit out. And you're writing about these awful things that happen, and you're trying to, kind of move those demons, but then you're fucking stuck talking about it every fucking night. It kind of doesn't, it's hard to get rid of the demon if you're reminded about it every day. So you have these little moments on tour where all of a sudden you have this little oasis. You know what oasis I'm talking about?
No.
After the show,
After the show, yeah. Playing more music after the show, the jam section.
We found a little stage behind the stage that had an upright piano.
That's right.
Take it away, Steven.
Well, imagine Tool in the spring of 1994 were Tool, like, no one could fuck with Tool. And we were the Flaming Lips from Oklahoma City, and we were opening shows for Tool. And you guys were the best guys as far as, like, the band can do whatever show they want, use their smoke machines, use their lights, whatever. Some bands are real just dicks about that. The P is kind of
old mommy daddy thing.
Exactly. Keep the lights down, don't let them play too loud, but you guys let us do our full show every night. And part of the fun of it was that some of the Tool fans did not like the Flaming drums at all. That time we were opening with a cover of a Flock of Seagulls song, Space Age Love Song. At least 3 nights you came out and said, "Hey, knuckleheads, shut up and give this band a chance. We asked them to play with us," which was huge, because then it gives people a whole different perception of, instead of being just the random big head opening band, you're, a bespoke opening band for Tool. But it was a great time. But yeah, there's actually there's a couple nights where you're playing an old theater or something, you'd find a grand piano in the back. And back then, I was just trying to please anybody that would listen to me play piano. So I'd go back there and start kind of like, Rocket Man by Elton John, or Beth by Kiss, or what we did, a Chicago song or something.
Elton John's greatest hits, fucking top to bottom. I remember at some point he looked up and like, "You know all these fucking words." Like, fuck yeah, I know all these fucking words. That's one of Steven Drozd greatest hits. Greatest hits.
Two bullet points on that. So, once again, you're always rooting for the underdog, it seems like. People are mocking the band. And you're telling them to show up and pay attention. Always doing it. Did you ever notice that trend, that sort of habit you have of always like trying to take care of the underdog?
Well, there's that, but he was like, at that time, he was the man who had all the power.
I know like that. I remember that guy.
It's like, look,
He was an asshole.
fool. Take in this wonderful psychedelic rock group. All right, we'll give him a chance. We couldn't get more inviting and everything. We had a great time. But yeah, we definitely bonded on the Elton John hits that time. So. I'm not sure if there's more of a story to tell.
No, but what more story do you need? Elton John.
I guess the joke is, I'm like, how do you know all these songs? They're like, well, it's Elton John. It's Elton John.
What about that? What's the Oasis nowadays for you? After shows like this and doing this, you mentioned 1994. That's 22 years ago.
Yeah.
And you're still doing this stuff.
On occasion, it's a little Elton John's greatest hits on cassette. But in the cellar, making wine, the soundtrack is generally something that's subdued and somewhat not sad, but just kind of moody. So I'll do almost all of Julian Welch's albums back to back, The Whole Day of Processing, or Ralph Stanley, Nina Simone, top to bottom. Those are kind
Not
of
to interrupt, but even 20 years ago, if you wanted to hear something special at 2 o'clock in the morning, you couldn't hear it. You had to go out the next day and go find it. You had to go to the record store and go get it. Or you had to go wherever the cassette or the CD. Now, unless it's something very, very, Shag's 15th record or something. You can, 3 o'clock in the morning, you're in Barcelona, you can Google whatever that thing is you want to hear.
Yeah, you can find it.
So, it's harder, for me at least, at home, to have those moments of total payoff and relaxation. And just like, I want to hear this record, it's going to take me away. For me, that's really hard to do nowadays. So,
Goes back to the internet. Everything readily available.
Yeah.
You have to work harder back then. Going to segue into that last piece you're going to read.
Okay.
Again, it goes back to us talking about this months ago, how to do this show and things that were important that you wanted to talk about. And I think this piece was, the first piece that you said you wanted to read no matter what, that you wanted to read this every night because it had some meaning looking back at it now 30 years ago.
1987.
Almost 30 years ago. Wow. Yeah. That's kind of weird, so you should talk a bit more about it and then read it.
Yeah, I think the important thing for you to understand is, as an artist, when you see some kind of celebrity or some actor that finally all of a sudden is on the scene and they're, Hansel, he's huge. There was some work that went into it before. There's things that happened, there's some work that was put in, so by the time they actually knew that person's name, there was some work that led up to it that you are taking advantage of. There's some luck, I think, and timing, but I think if you're present and aware and conscious and connected, You see it, and you can take advantage of it, and you can build on it, knowing all the hard work that it took to get there. Just because you recognize it, seized it, and started to work on it, it's still going to take a long fucking time for you to get to the next level of whatever that is. So even when I had done all that work in Grand Rapids and done all these things, I abandoned music for a while. I went to Boston and came back, and some people in LA had heard what I did in Grand Rapids, and they wanted to do a thing, and I was like, no, I fucking hate that whole thing, and I was convinced to do it. Even when I said yes, and even when things kind of took off for us, it still took 8 years for us to get anywhere. I was living on $500 a month. We had 2 platinum albums under our belt and a Grammy in Los Angeles. Yeah. And I was still living on $500 a month. So the work was still being put in. We weren't there. We weren't millionaires or anywhere close to it. We were still riding around in a fucking RV, trying to make ends meet. So I think that's important for people to realize that there's work that has to go into it, and whatever you see, something happened before that. This entitlement age has to get their fucking head around that. You gotta put the work. So I used to have this band called The Children of the Anachronistic Dynasty. It was just basically me. And I had a 4-track, a Korg Super Drums, a little Boss pedal, chorus pedal, and then a Rat distortion pedal, and a fake Steinberg guitar with a PV Black Widow amp and a speaker. And I would do these children, the CAD music on the 4-track. Doing all the layers, figuring out all the way to put the little microphone shitty thing. But, dumped it down to a cassette, bought a dual cassette player, dubbing them off one at a time, putting in the little, making the little sleeves to put in the cassette hand by hand. And then I had this little manifesto that I printed out that I also stuck in the cassette, and I would trudge down to the local record store and sell them for $5 a piece. I think I sold at least 100 of them. Children of the Anachronistic Dynasty, 1987. Based on our being merely average in the field of corporate middle-class TV-watching American consumerism, we, the children, have reached the following conclusions and predictions out of need. What need? Well, we needed to know why things don't work. Why we cure cancer with cancer and pursue peace by building bombs. We needed to know why we know the ozone is the problem by manufacturing and producing number 28 strength, extra strength sunscreen by Tropical Blend. We needed to know why we, in our advanced state of space travel and genetic research, haven't discovered a cure for AIDS as of yet. And why we attempt to end racial prejudice by acknowledging the separation. We needed to know why we think that he who dies with the most toys is the winner, and why that all we consider success can be physically taken away from us. Why? Because we are victims of a dualistic cause-effect paradigm that merely lacks empathy. 1 + 1 + 1 = 1. Unless you are a slave of the dualistic Western Rambo culture, then 1 + 1 = 2. No longer do we experience the harmonious interaction between each other and our environment. All that we see experienced here is in twos, like opposites. Black and white, good and bad, us and them. Therefore, we, the children, have reached the fear of the following. In 5 years, we'll discover the cure for AIDS merely because it began to seriously affect heterosexuals 1 year previous. In 10 years, there'll be no more cold winters. In 10 years, heat from unfiltered ultraviolet sun rays will result in drought and frenzy. Drought and frenzy will result in mass starvation and race riots. In 10 years, those without toys will take from those with toys, and soon all the toys will break, become meaningless, and be forgotten. In 10 years, the Mercedes, the job securities, the stocks, the bank accounts, and the master's degrees will no longer be considered elements of success. In 12 years, safe shelter, food, extra ammo for the rifle, surviving a raid or making a profitable raid, or just plain surviving will be considered true success. In 15 years, fewer and fewer will be successful because of lesser and lesser food for which to be successful. In 15 years, those who established isolated strongholds because they felt they were a superior breed or race will find that the person in the bunk next to them is more of a derelict and an imbecile than the person or persons they burned or murdered 5 years earlier merely because of their color. In 15 years, this tape will not matter. The instruments used to play and produce it will not matter. And whether you have a few dollars it takes to purchase it will not matter. But what is set out of is timeless. It cannot be erased or taken away from us. It is forever. And in 20 years, when the ice caps have melted, Mother Nature will have another go at it. And hopefully, as time progresses in this new world, there will be no need for another bloodline of misplaced youth. Amen. Thank you. We are CAD.
So, as we transition from one portion of the evening to the next, we always ask our guest here to sort of summarize. And you just cannot lean back.
Yeah.
We're all gonna hunch over like this. Okay. Campfire. Okay. Yeah. Ask you to sort of summarize as you hunch over your thoughts on both this and the book and what your takeaway is and what you want people to take away.
Well, I think, first of all, you need a lot more time to just sit here and basically shoot the shit. whether we know each other or not, you start to bring these things up, I think there just should be a lot more time involved. You know?
Yeah, we just scratched the surface.
Round table, and there's like 8 hours, and there's food and drink. And I appreciate it. It's very, man, you could just get started.
Mastermind.
Everyone take the book home and spend some quality time. I think that's...
Yeah, the book I got was the PDF version with no pictures, so now I have the pictures, so
Awesome.
so I earned that. But, if nothing else, when I met you in 1994, I thought you were a fascinating character, and we've kind of known each other casually over the years, but reading your life story, it really is, it's hard to explain that there's a path you could go this way, there's a path you could go this way. Things happen to people by chance, things that happen to you by chance, a lot of people by chance, but it seemed like you made some decisions that worked in your favor and made some other decisions, and I think you've really been proactive in your own success, and you continue to be, and you should be happy for that. So that's my basic thing again.
Thank you.
I think this is the last one. I think you should sort of summarize, if anything, this last 3 weeks you want to share. Anything in particular? Any favorite moments? Anything in general?
I think I want to just echo what we said at the top. A lot of confusion out there. I have to watch what I say. We're in Texas. We're in enemy territory. Not a Trump. Sorry. What's that? I'll focus on the humor a little bit. But I think just in light of everything that's happening, I think we just all need to take a step back and remember our connection to each other. Remember our that just kind of take that conscious path and look out for each other, because I think things are probably going to get worse before they get better. But you have to understand that if anything came out of this whole run, there was the words of my father. Of course, this could be applied to almost anything, but he was seeing it in terms of wrestling. Wrestling, you're going out there and it's you against you, basically. There's an opponent, and there's some push and pull, and there's definitely some it's battle. But his point was, you go out there and you either win or you learn. If you just choose to lose, well, then you're just a fucking loser. So go out there and either win or learn. Now, and how it's getting kind of ugly and escalating and everywhere across the states, and it's going to be a global mess if we're not careful. I think we have to remember that there is something to learn from it. A silver lining. We gotta learn something. Whatever you take, that's up to you as an individual. What do you learn from this thing to take away, and try to do better tomorrow? Try to be a better person tomorrow than you were today, because it is, again, it's about you winning or learning. And I don't mean like winning a contest, just reaching your goal. If you didn't reach your goal, why didn't you reach your goal? And figure out a way how to be better tomorrow.
Very, very cool.
Yeah, so I think, to sum that up, I think, you're old school philosophers. In order to make things better for tomorrow, you can't point your finger at the other person like it's their fault or what they're doing is wrong or whatever. You have to take a fucking stop, take a minute, look at yourself, know thyself, own your shit, and get this thing fixed.
On that note, we're going to segue into the Q&A portion of the evening.
You have some mics down.
There's some mics out there, I think, someplace.
I'm going to call up.
Okay. Yeah, so you'll hear your name called. If you hear your name called, get to a mic and ask me a question. First up is Katie Phillips.
Katie Evans Phillips.
Katie, you in there?
Oh, here. I think there's a mic that way for you.
Look right there.
Those lights are pretty good. Katie Evans Phillips.
No, can't hear you.
Mic not on?
Can we get those mics on, please? I think he's coming to turn the mic on right now for you.
Tragedy.
Hello.
Hi.
Okay.
So I have a question about wine.
Okay.
Your Judith 2008 is very important to me. It was very sentimental in my life when I shared it with my husband. Out of all the wines you've created, what is the most sentimental to you and why?
Have any of you farmers? Do you work in farming at all? The cliche in the vineyard is, in wine business in general, is that wine is made in the vineyard. That's where it all starts. And then I just try to get out of the way in the cellar. Now, I think that's a rather romantic statement. I think it's more of a 60-40 thing, because what I do in the cellar is different than what another winemaker might do with the same fruit. But if you've seen the struggle from the start, planted that vines, and watched them grow. You can't plant the thing and care for it and watch it grow without it affecting you on some core level. So every one of those vines, every one of those blocks has been a blessing and a struggle all the way through. And I think you kind of have to, another life message is just, you have to understand that there is no fucking thing, no such thing as retirement plans or retirement. You work at surviving from the first breath you draw to the last breath you draw. So every one of those wines, every one of those things was a puzzle for me, and I accept that challenge every year for those different projects. So not to dismiss your question, I'm not dismissing it, I'm telling you, every one of those wines, every one of those blocks was an individual, unique struggle, success, failures. So they all mean something because, again, we're working on learning. Every time you don't do it right, you don't get it right. Matthew Wright with a W. We're going to send you that way because that mic works and that one doesn't. God bless America. No. We're in mic now. I heard that.
All right,
Simply listening to music can bring back old memories and feelings. Do you find it emotionally difficult to sing some of your older material?
Fuck yeah. Yeah, I mean, you gotta, I'm proud of everything I've done. I shouldn't say proud. Pride is a weird thing. I'm very happy with some of those puzzles and having solved some of those puzzles. And I'm happy that having put some of those feelings on tape or on paper have helped me work through some issues. But I think some of them I can't sing anymore because they were so angry and they were so rooted in that moment, and that moment was captured. To do them again brings up those things that I've kind of moved on from, which is a blessing and a curse because people respond to those things, but they're not healthy for me to do, and I have to make that choice. Do I maintain my health and go forward and create other things to help other people, or do I listen to this dude who can't fucking figure it out for himself and tear up an old scar and old wounds and drag myself down to the fucking bar? No. Curtis Snap with 2 P's.
Thanks. I love that time, by the way. My question is,
Speaking to the mic, I can't quite hear you. I'm deaf and old.
no problem. When and how did you discover Korean Round?
I did not discover Karina Round. Karina Round was around. She was doing work with Peter Gabriel, Billy Corgan. She's done a lot of work around the world before I met her. And I met her because Matt Mitchell, he's my Martin Gore. I'm just Dave Kahn dancing around. Matt had seen her perform in the studio at some point, and he called her in to work with us. So I think, I'd like to rephrase that if you don't mind. You should ask Karina when she discovered me, because she's more important in that band than I am.
I'm Marie Kent. If I'm pronouncing your name right.
You did.
I apologize.
I think that might work now.
Ina or Aina?
And say it. How do you say it?
It's Ina.
Ina.
You got it right.
Just
So what in your life are you the most proud of? And what is the one thing you wish you could change or go back and redo if you could?
I'll answer the second part first.
Okay.
I wouldn't change anything.
yeah.
I always kind of say that I was damaged in Ohio and repaired in Michigan. So all that shit that happened to you as a kid, that's you. That's how you got here. So I wouldn't change anything. I've made some pretty fucking stupid decisions over the years, but luckily I've learned from them, most of them. I'm still learning. We're not there yet. This is like this is a truck stop on the way with this book. But I wouldn't change any of those things because that's how we got here. And what am I most proud of? I'm proud of. I can't really use the word proud. I'm lucky. I'm lucky to have found the people in my life that have helped prop me up. All the things that I've done, I could not have done without somebody else's help, expertise, vision. So I'm the luckiest person in the world. So.
Marcus Johnson.
Marcus.
That's the other Marcus Johnson.
Wait, there's another Marcus Johnson? Hi, no, I did just ask part of my question, so I'm going to read it first and then I'll rephrase it.
Okay.
I put, is there any one pivotal situation in your life that you would wish you could go back and redo, whether it is because you want to change the outcome or simply cherish it the most? And so now I guess I'll just rephrase it to, is there one situation that you would go back and redo because you cherish it the most?
Interesting point. Yeah, I think most people focus on going back and trying to change the past, like she had asked. I don't want to do that, but yeah, I don't know. Those moments, I carry them with me for the most part. So reliving them on a daily basis is, it's just a matter of finding a quiet space and reminiscing. But if I had to go back and look at a moment that was just one of those moments that I would relive a couple times if I could, would be when I almost beat the state champion in wrestling because he completely underestimated me.
Back to underestimation of dismissal.
Yes. Ethan and B-E-A-U-L-E-I. You guys need to look Smith. Where's Luke Smith?
Bo-U? Yes.
All right.
Trust me, I figured it out like 3 years ago myself. So. But anyways, you touched on parts of my question already, so in lieu of that, I kind of wanted to just spend 1 minute, and thank you all, of course, and the conversation of Creed actually has came up, and that kind of got my mind jogging in a sense. Growing up, they were my first favorite band. Growing up, I was raised a Catholic. Yeah.
Security. Just kidding.
No, thank you, Nick. So yes, I was raised Catholic. Them being a Christian band, it was easy to get into. I enjoyed it. They have some meaning to me, but there was a point where, my family goes through this situation where, hey, let's burn Harry Potter books, let's smash the Metallica records. It was just a false front, and we got out of it, and I'm thankful for that. But your band, Tool, and all of your acts, of course, have given me a lot to lean on, and kind of refocus and see, hey, there is a lot of shit out there. No offense to Creed. Scott Staff's talented, and it's all right. But he's had his ups and downs as well. But I just wanted to thank you, because I know a lot of us feel that way, that you've given us a connection to a higher sense of guidance that we might have been missing in a way, because there's so many factors in our lives, whether it be our environment, our parents, that we just were clouded in a sense. So
Thank you.
I just wanted to reflect. Since I had the moment. My question was, since it is the last tour stop, if you would reflect on some of the highs and lows of the tour itself, and mostly what were maybe some of the most interesting questions you may have been asked, and what were some of the worst?
Well, I didn't really get any bad questions. I think the highs and lows were the combination of, for me, it was mostly highs, because every night I get to speak to somebody like Steven, who has a whole different perspective on the story. They pick out every night. We've done 15 of these things, and the moderators has fixated on a completely different part of the book. It's been very interesting. We're 15 completely different perspectives on the story, which I found fascinating. Very few people focus on the same part. So that to me was an interesting tip, because we have moderators from all walks of life. We have Kimber Lanning out of Arizona. She's the local first champion, all the local farm-to-table movements, local banking, local spending. She was incredible, because she picked apart all of that entrepreneurial thing, aspect of the book. Kim Thale comes from Soundgarden in Seattle. He picked up on a lot of interesting nuances that I completely missed in my own book. Because of course, it's like a crazy batshit guy like me. So there's just having different personalities. Last night we were in Denver. actually Boulder, and Lauren Landau is a trainer. He has Landau Performance, and this is a guy who sees Peyton Manning and Kat Zingano and Cowboy Cerrone and all the UFC fighters. He's a guy who conditions them and he puts them on the right path. So to have a guy who's got that kind of crazy martial art, athletic focus, to have him pick out situations from the book, I thought was very, very inspiring. He had a lot of really interesting questions. So that's been the highlight for me, is having other people that I respect find aspects of this thing all different that resonated with them. So that's a good encouraging sign. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jared Patterson.
Jared. There it is.
Hey guys, awesome. I really appreciated the consciousness and connectiveness that you mentioned earlier. And then my question is, as a winemaker, when you're out in the vineyards, I mean, how do you summon that? And then how do you use that when you're using the winemaking techniques that maybe you've learned from other regions and maybe you borrowed to make the wines that you're making? And then, in addition to that, how do you also take into the effect that you're making wines in a very unorthodox area, not a place that a lot of people are making wines?
Okay.
So, those are my questions.
This is going to bore the fuck out of some of you.
I think it's awesome.
So, going back to Kimber Lanning, the local first woman in Arizona, I'm going to back up a little bit for them so they can kind of get a feel for what we're doing. Just in general, I'll give you the broad strokes. If you've ever had a Malbec from Argentina, that's a similar elevation to what we're doing in Arizona. So wine grapes grown in an area that has that friction. That's where great art happens, where it almost can't be made and is not too comfortable for being made. That's where all the great shit happens, right on that friction's edge. And we are at that friction's edge in Arizona with the addition of all those wonderful buzzwords you hear from all the great regions: Burgundy, Bordeaux, Rhone, Mount Etna, Piemonte, Brunello, Montalcino. We have elevated limestone seabeds, ancient seabeds that have been pushed up by the volcanic activities. So we have volcanic influence as well. We have decomposed granite. We have elevation. So we have that diurnal swing. You have similar in Texas. You have the similar regions where you've got those 30-degree swings night to day. So we have all of those elements that are the things that make that place unique and distinct. And you have that friction on the edge of it almost not working. So we have the potential to make great wines. So to speak to your point, I can almost use the flamenco story to kind of demonstrate what I mean by that. That process, that focus, those things, to do those things right, there is a path that's already been beaten in the ground for us. Burgundy, Bordeaux, thousands of years of notes in winemaking in those areas. What I find in new regions is that everybody reverse engineers it, and I'm sure you've heard of this in Texas. They try to plant Cabernet and Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, and that shit doesn't grow in Texas. You're fucking wasting your money. It's some banker looking at the bottom line of what sells, not paying attention to where the fuck they are and what grows in their space, that conscious connection of where you are. And that's what's going to save my ass in Arizona, because we're not breaking the mold. We're doing things, we're farming like they farm in Mount Etna, and Piemonte, and Brunello di Montalcino. We're holding our feet to that fire. You can't get greedy, and you can't be impatient. It has to be the long game, and you're learning every year how you do it. So some of the things, the buzzwords, this is where you guys fall asleep. It's the submerged cap fermentations, it's the extended macerations, it's the paying attention to the pHs. We're bringing those things in so that they're a food-friendly wine that goes on the table with food, not these crazy. Okay, here's the analogy: is most of the wines that get scores, they have 30 seconds to impress a judge, and they have to be big and bold and crazy in those 30 seconds. So that would be like, if you like Metallica, you're going to get Metallica in 30 seconds. I'm Pink Floyd. It's going to take... special treat.
Yeah, before we say goodnight to you guys, first of all, I want to thank Steven for being here. We want to thank all of you guys for being here. We really appreciate the hospitality and the attention and care you've had this evening. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I want to thank you for doing this personally, because it was my stupid idea. And
Worked out.
Worked out. That's okay. I think we've all walked away with a little bit of a better understanding of who you are on some weird level.
And hopefully a path to find out who you are.
Exactly. So on that note, we're going to say goodnight, but before we do, you've got a special treat for people. So
Yes.
do you want to play this?
It's a work in progress, so please be patient. We've got a lot of work to do on it and a lot of adjustments to make, but we wanted to share it with you in its state just so you can kind of see part of the process. Remember what you see, because the next time you see it, it won't look like that. It will look like something different, something more, something better, something more dialed in step by step. Just like writing a song, it's this fucking thing out here, and by the time you actually hear it, there was all this shit that happened between thinking of it and actually recording it. So this is a video, a companion piece to Money Shot's Grand Canyon video. This is the Money Shot Galileo video. So thank you.